We just sharing the live, y'all. Hold on. Hold on, y'all. All right, let's get started. Fuck it. We in here. Y'all ready? Let's go. All right. So shout out to Los. We about to talk about some tobacco. He brought up the American Indians' contribution to the world. And tobacco is an amazing contribution. It leads into a few things, but it leads into some erasure that we're about to bring up. All right, let's get started. Let me see. All right. I be trying to be organized and shit, y'all, so forgive me. It's going to start with this, okay? The tilling of land, right? The act of preparing the earth for crops, right? So when they say you don't have no culture, right? Now we know what culture stands for, right? Tilling the land and preparing the earth for crops. So the culture we about to be talking about today is this culture, right? We're going to be talking about the crops, right? The culture that they stole from you was the land, all right? The culture that they stole from you was the land. If you ever done your genealogy, then you know that what you found when you did your genealogy was what? Farmers, landowners, right? These people had crops. One of those crops is tobacco. Let's get into this tobacco. Hold on, yo. We can't get there. I'm trying to get through my shit. They're not trying to let me access my photos. Anybody that goes live often, have y'all ever heard of this being something that takes place? Not letting you access your photos? Right? All right, so boom, this is the book, the American Indians. Basically, this is their contributions to the world, right? Peace, ancient aura. So they won't let me access all my photos, but we're gonna get into it, right? So according to ethnobotanists, the two most prevalent types of tobacco, you know, nicotana tobacco and rustica, right, were growing in America in as early as 6,000 BC. All right, American Indians are believed to have been cultivating tobacco about AD 1, right? AD is Anno Domini, right? Anno is current, right? The current era, right? Although they use it in some social settings, indigenous peoples use tobacco primarily in ceremonies, all right? Primarily in ceremonies. So y'all need to keep that in mind. The ceremonial part of the things, right? Because there's something about our culture that starts off righteous and it turns into something else. This is a historical thing that takes place, right? We know this to be the case, right? We know that we create something righteously, it's taken from us by the world and turned into something else, right? Put a one in the comments if you know that to be true. Hello, pretty, right? Put a one in the comments if you know that to be true, right? That we create things righteously, virtuously, right? And it gets corrupted, right? It gets corrupted by the world, right? But before they corrupt it, they take the credit away from us being the creators, right? So they'll take it from us, pretend like they did it, and then give this demonized version of what we did to the world. So I want y'all to keep the ceremony part in mind, right? Keep that in mind, okay? Because we're gonna make it through a few things, and we're gonna get to this part, right? All right. By 1617, the Jamestown colony had tobacco planted alongside the streets and marketplace. After the harvest, they shipped 20,000 pounds of it back to England. All right, 20,000 pounds. All right. So when you hear about slavery, what is the crop that they always talk about? When you hear about slavery, what, what crop do they always tell you about? They don't tell you about tobacco, right? They tell you about what? Cotton, right? So the reason why cotton became such a major thing is one, because they were over cultivating tobacco, right? They were over cultivating it, right? And it put the land, they basically fucked the land up over harvesting tobacco. And then over time, tobacco went from what it was and cotton became the major crop, right? It's called greed. All right. Have y'all heard about the tobacco Indians? Y'all heard about the tobacco Indians, right? Exactly. So tobacco is not only used, well, now it's used for what it's used for. But if you practice any kind of rituals, you know that tobacco has way different purposes than what we know of it today, right? Right now, it's just destroying people's lives. But there was a time where tobacco had spiritual meanings, soulful meanings, right? And it wasn't utilized the way it is today, right? So we heard of the tobacco Indians, right? Now we got to remember all this stuff is propaganda, right? They propagate. These are messages that they use to, to tell stories, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So what do we see here? Exactly, Your Majesty. Exactly, it's medicine. All right. Exactly. So the propaganda is corrupted, right? So in this image, all you see is an indigenous person holding some tobacco leaves, right? And it's a representation of the cultivating of this crop, right? But just like everything else, this can't stay the way that it is, right? Because if you see it just like this, right, this doesn't give you the image of inferiority, right? It just gives you the image of possibly being the cultivator, right? This is the cultivator. You got a barrel next to him, which means that this is not only a cultivator, but this person is in control of the shipping possibly, right? And then you got a ship coming, right? You know what I'm saying? Think about this ship, right? So when they talk about slavery, does anybody know who? All right, so in the 1600s, there were ships that came over here, and what was the flag flying on these ships, right? Does anybody know? It starts with a D. It starts with a D, right? It starts with a D. All right, it starts with a D. Everybody, right? These ships coming in the 1600s, right? On the East Coast. There we go, Chief. Dutch. All right, keep that word in mind. Dutch. This is all important. Knights Templar Red Cross. Keep that in mind. All right, Dutch. They're gonna try to push a narrative on you, right? Because these Dutch ships were so-called the first people to bring African slaves over here. Now they're gonna push a narrative on you of Africanism, right? But we know better than that now. They don't want us to know better, but we do know better, right? There's no way. All right. So the reason why this is so important is because once you realize what's really taking place, peace, Adam. Once you realize what's really taking place, right, you'll realize it's all business. Everything is a business thing going on. It's all about money. It doesn't make sense if I'm going to ship 20,000. How many pounds did they say? Do y'all remember? It was 20,000 pounds, right? If I'm shipping 20,000 pounds worth of tobacco, and what kind of world would I also want to have to take care of humans other than my shipmates? In what kind of world would I be shipping these amounts of crops back and forth, right? And still want to take the time to take care of humans that are suffering, sick and suffering, right? Because the way that a slave would be sick and suffering on the ocean, right, would be crazy. There's no way that I'm doing all these things and keeping all the money, right? If you've ever sold anything, what's the purpose of selling something for money? It's to get a what? It starts with a P. If I'm selling something for money, my main goal is to get a what after it's sold. There we go, Big C. There we go, OG. Profit. so if all my profit is going into taking care of people, what is the purpose? You got to think about ship maintenance. You got to think about food. You got to think about water. You got to think about sickness. You got to think about health. You got to think about all these other things, right? My profit margin is going down the drain for every week it takes, for every month it takes, for every accident that happens, for every storm that occurs. My profit margin is decreasing over and over and over and over and over again. It wouldn't make sense, man. If I was going to do anything, I would be like, yo, there's a place where they have this crop that is amazing. Oh yeah, what's going on? Tell me more about it. Well, there's these people over there that are growing this shit, and they grow it up. They're masters at growing it. Okay, well, let's go over there and enslave these people and make them grow it for us. Or I could say, oh, so you already have people over there doing it already. They're the nicest people you ever met. Let's go get some Africans, take them over there. What kind of sense does that even make? That doesn't even add up in a logical mind. Logistic wise and logic wise, it doesn't add up at all, right? So boom, right? Now we have this photo, right? Now we got to remember that there's this thing that exists, right? There's this thing that exists that we deal with all the time. And I'm going to show y'all a quick depiction of how this shit works, right? Right? Y'all see these pictures? Right? This is how they turn something positive into a negative, right? With things like this. This right here is called propaganda. You use these pictures, right? Propaganda. You use these kind of images And you could turn something somebody loved into something they hate, right? They could take things that you loved and make it something you hated through propaganda, right? So one generation knows the power of this. And then through 2 generations of time, the propaganda will make you, the descendant, hate everything that's taken place, right? You look at this and you scoff. Oh, what? And all that shit, right? But little do you know that this is medicine, right? We're not going to get into the medicine of this because we're focused on something else. But I will just tell you that that is medicine, right? All these different sources of medicine are found just in the watermelon seeds alone, right? Folate, vitamin B, bone health, potential diuretic, anti-inflammatory, good source of protein, rich and healthy fats. All these things are found in the seeds alone, right? And if you know anything about watermelons, they're in the squash family. You can eat the whole entire thing. You could eat the entire watermelon. The whole thing is edible, right? So we just seen that picture of the tobacco Indian, right? Right? So we just seen this. There's no negativity in this image, right? In fact, when you look at this right now, it's kind of empowering, right? Knowing that your ancestors were farmers and cultivators of land. You look at this image, knowing who you are, now that you know who you are, this is empowering, isn't it? To say the least, this is empowering, right? Oh shit, I know who my people are. I know what this image represents. This empowers me, right? But they can't have you empowered, right? Because you have so much power that if you get empowered, imagine how powerful you become, right? So they have to fuck this image up as well. They can't give you this. They got to give you something else, right? They got to take your power away. We know this to be true. So then they give you something like this, right? Propaganda, right? I want y'all to pay attention to the bows, the bow and the arrow, right? Pay attention. Peace, pure life guy. Pay attention. All right. Thank you for the gifts. Bloody arrow. All right. So now they give you propaganda. We know what this shit is, right? This is a minstrel. Now you look at this and your power has been taken away. Feathers in the hat, bow and arrow, right? You know what I'm saying? Those socks have a meaning. All of this shit has a meaning, right? We could get into the socks and what they represent later, but there's a deity that these Native Americans have a depiction of. And if once you start to see the similarities, you're like, yo, people have been mocking us the whole time, right? So now you see this. This is propaganda, right? But it's called niggerhead, right? We know what's up. We know what's going on. This is a tobacco company, right? And we're talking about tobacco. So let's break it down, right? Okay? But I want y'all to remember what these people are, right? All these images were melanated individuals, right? I hope this shows up good. All right? Hopefully I can read this because the shit is in the way. Does anybody know if there's a way I could take the top of my screen and move it around? All right. Let me see if I got another picture that'll work. No, I don't. All right. So there's a word, y'all. I don't know how to do it, so we just gonna have to push through. There's a word in this that is important, right? Let me see if I can pull it up on my computer. Y'all got to pay attention to everything that these people are doing, right? Because your enemy, the reason why we struggle with a lot of the information is because we be really wishing that our enemies were stupid. We be wishing that they were. And we be like, yo, man, but they're not. Unfortunately, they're not. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, they're not. Right? There we go. I pulled it up on my computer. Let's see if I can read it from there. Unfortunately, they're not stupid, right? Can y'all see? Put a one in the comments if y'all can see that. Let me know if y'all. Okay. We about to read it, right? The Pequots, right? I want y'all to remember this word. Very important. All right? Y'all remember this word. The Pequots. Have y'all ever heard of that before? Let me know. Have y'all ever heard of the Pequots? This is a tribe. Have you ever heard of the Pequot tribe? Or the Pequot people? Are a stately, warlike people. All right? We about to break down who these people are. All right? If you know, don't say nothing, because y'all gonna fuck my live up. Let me get to it. Say now. The Pequots are a stately, warlike people, just and equal in their dealings, not treacherous either to their countrymen, right? Or English, to whom, except in the time of war, they were not in any way uncivil. Their next neighbors are the Narragansett, right? Hey, look, everything adds up when you pay attention. So I want y'all to remember the Pequots, and then we're going to remember the Narragansett, right? Y'all know y'all heard of the Narragansett, right? Put a one in the comments if you heard of the Narragansett, right? Y'all have to remember these names. They're neighbors, right? Remember that the Pequots and the Narragansetts are neighbors, okay? The Pequot and the Narragansetts are neighbors, are the most numerous people in those parts, the most rich also, right? The most rich and the most industrious. Y'all know what an industry is, right? We know what industry is, right? Raise your hand. We know what industry is, right? They're industrious, all right? So if you meet industrious people, right, they have culture and they're industrious, right? Wouldn't your best bet would be to either enslave them or copy and steal everything that they do, right? That's your best bet. If you came from nothing, you see an industrious people, your best thing to do is to take everything they already got going on, right? Because they're already industrious. They already have this shit in motion. And you don't have no motion. So I'm going to steal your motion so I could get rich quick without having to think about it, without having to do anything. The only thing I have to think about is how can I take your industry and take it somewhere else. But then once you start to look at these maps, you'll start to realize that these people they already had trade routes, right? So once you start to, the Dutch East Indian Company and the British East Indian Company, right? Look those things up and you'll realize that the trade routes they took were pre-existing. So that means we were already doing this shit and they came and just did what we were doing. Plain and simple. They said you were nobody, but you were industrious people making shit happen, being the storehouse of all such kind of wild merchandise, all kind of merchandise, as is amongst them. These men are the most curious mentors of their Wampanoag, right? And Mobakes, which they form out of the inmost reefs of periwinkle shells. The northern, eastern, and western Indians fetch all their coin from these southern mint makers, right? Or masters. From hence, they have most of their curious pendants and bracelets. From hence, they have their great stone pipes. All right, this is important too. Great stone pipes, right? So they got what? They're industrious. They got jewelry. They got a form of money. They got stone pipes. They got crops. Raise your hand if you're hearing the details of a savage. Where's the savagery in any of this? They're civil people, civil, industrious people with merchandise. Give me 1 second. I'll tap the screen. My fault. Sounds like the same shit we do today. Same shit we do today. I made these. I'm industrious. You feel me? All right, let's get it. All right, where are we at? From these southern mint masters, from hence they have most of their curious pendants and bracelets. From hence they have their great stone pipes. Remember that, stone pipes. I'm going to tell y'all every once in a while to remember things, right? Because it all goes together. We're going to tie it all in, right? All right. Which will hold 1/4 of an ounce of tobacco. Damn. Hey, look. They ain't playing. Tobacco. Ain't that what we talking about? These industrious tobacco smoking Indians. Right? Right. Peace, Miss Lovely. Which they make with steel drills. That's not savagery. So you're telling me there's some people they called savages who were industrious, who were civil, who had jewelry and merchandise and steel drills? What are people doing with steel drills? Huh? And other instruments. So they had all kind of tools. A steel drill. I know niggas that don't have drills in their house right now, and it's 2025. Such is the ingenuity and dexterity that they can imitate the English mold so accurately that were it not for matter and color, it were hard to distinguish them. They make them of green and sometimes black stones. So they were drilling into green and black stones and making pipes, right? And they were so good at making pipes that the Englishmen's pipes, they could copy it and make it even better, right? They are much differed of our English tobacconists for their rarity, strength, handsomeness, and coolness. They said that shit was cool, right? They said the pipes that were being made in America by these Indians was way cooler than their shit. Way better, way stronger, and more rare, right? Likewise, our Indians had their pots. Remember this word, right? Pots. I'm going to tell y'all throughout this live to remember certain things because we're going to get to everything, right? Because there was a time when people told the truth, right? Because you got to remember, these letters are going to who? Can anybody guess who these kind of letters and documents are getting relayed to? The kings and queens, the kings and queens. You can't lie to a king and a queen because once I send this letter, what is the king or queen sending in response to this letter? They're sending ships, they're sending people to come see what's going on. And if they get there and don't find what you said was going on, what happens? All right. Most of these northward Indians are between 5 and 6 foot high, straight bodied, strongly composed, smooth skinned, merry countenance, of complexion more swarthy, Uh oh. Uh oh. More swarthy than Spaniards, right? Black haired, high forehead, black eyed, out nosed, broad shouldered, brawny arm, long and slender handed, out breasted, small waisted, lank belly, well thighed. Come on now. Wait a minute. Hey, all the ladies in the comments, I'm pretty sure vast majority of y'all are well thighed. I ain't even never used no compliment like that, but I'm gonna use it the next time I'm flirting. Like, damn girl, you well thighed. You well thighed and flat kneed. Shit, I'm trying to get me some well thighed, flat kneed. You know what I mean? It said y'all got handsome grown legs and small feet, right? You know what I'm saying? Well thighed. Shout out to Los. We talking about that tobacco, my brother. You got me hyped. We about to get on to this shit, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to remember this swarthy, right? This swarthy complexion. We know what swarthy means. I don't care what nobody else told you. We know what swarthy means. A Pan African will tell you all kind of things, but a real nigga will tell you swarthy means black, right? Swarthy means black in the sense of what people call black today, right? Swarthy means approaching, nearing blackness, right? Now, let's go back, right? Because I told y'all I wanted y'all to remember something. And what I wanted y'all to remember was what? Pequots, Narragansetts. These are swarthy Indians. They just told you that, right? Pequots. A lot of y'all said y'all never heard of a Pequot before, but I'm going to show you what a Pequot is. A Pequot is a Pequot, right? Don't those look like some swarthy Indians? And it just so happens that in this meeting you have the Pequot and the Narragansett tribe together. And the document we just said what about the Pequot and the Narragansett? All damn day. The document we just read said what about these? They're neighbors, Big C. So if they were neighbors back then, don't it make sense that they're neighbors now? If they were neighbors back then, don't it make sense that they're neighbors now? If they were neighbors back then, don't it make sense that they're... But people don't think erasure exists. People think that when these swarthy tribes say that they're being erased, they don't, or they've been erased. People don't think that it exists, right? But here we go, right? In 2005, the BIA denied recognition of the Eastern Pequot Indians of Connecticut and the Pawcatuck Eastern Pequot Indians of Connecticut. But the new petition claims to represent the historical Eastern Pequot tribe, the paper reported. The BIA's Part 83 reforms to the federal recognition process otherwise bar previously rejected groups from submitting new petitions, right? So we just read that the people that came here in the earliest times saw these niggas existing, but the BIA is saying you don't exist. Now, why would they do that? I just showed you a handwritten document from somebody that came here and saw these people. But the BIA is telling them that they're not real, they don't exist, and you can't submit new petitions? In 2002, the Eastern Pequots won a favorable decision from the BIA, but opposition from the state of Connecticut prompted the Bush administration to reconsider. Why are these people fighting so hard against these people if it's been proven that they were here, if the earliest documents are about them? But these people will tell you that the swarthy so-called black Indians didn't exist. So do they not exist or are they not being recognized? There's a difference, right? Bureau of Indian Affairs. Lo said, what's an affair? Business. The Bureau of Indian Business. All right. It's either a business or vague proceedings. Vague proceedings, right? Proceedings, right? So what's vague about what they're doing? Oh, they're not looking into all the details, right? If you don't match this, then you can't be this. But in reality, now we know. I just showed y'all pure erasure, right? I just showed y'all 100% pure erasure. I showed y'all that they said that these two people exist together. They're industrious people and they're swarthy. I just showed you them fighting for their recognition and not getting it from the BIA because the BIA is what? Against you, right? A lot of niggas want to join these tribes right now. But it's like, why the hell would you join these tribes when these tribes are corrupt? We ain't gonna get nothing from them. And the only reason why they would want you to to be a part of the tribe is because you are the heirs to the land. And the land that they're on, they need an heir there in order for it to be anything. So if you submit to them as an heir, what does that mean happens with the land? Doesn't that mean the land is submitted to them too? If you're the heir of land and you submit to me and bow down to me, then whose land is it now? Right? We all seen this before, right? Virginia Indians may be classified with the Negro race. Walter Plecker, that whole thing, right? People don't think that this shit is true. People don't think these things took place, but I just showed you. I just showed you in real time, right? This is what they're doing. You know, somebody's been lying. We're about to get to the bottom of it, right? These people have been taking the melanated tribes that they found on the East Coast, all up and down the East Coast and the mid country and the West and into South America, right? Turning these people into Africans somehow, magically, right? And then after a couple generations, you forget who you are, right? And then boom, next you know, the universe does what the universe does, and everybody wakes up, right? But the issue is we've been trying to prove ourselves to the same people who who know who we are, but they're lying. So how can you prove yourself to somebody that's lying? If somebody steals my backpack and I go up to them and say, "Yo, that's my backpack," in what world are they gonna be like, "Yo, yeah, you're right, my fault. Oops." They know that shit is yours. They stole it. They can't tell you it's yours, right? They can't tell you it's yours or you'll want it back. Hold on, yo, they fucking up my thing. They won't let me access all my photos. All right. So these are pipes, man. They talked about pipes. Didn't we? We talked about how they were creating these amazing, beautiful pipes, right? Amazing, beautiful pipes, right? Stone carvings, Mayan priests, right? This connects to the Maya and everything and tobacco cultivation, right? Right? So the reason why we're so cold with these pipes, remember they said that the pipes we made were rare and better than anything they ever seen, right? The most beautiful and handsome pipes that they ever seen. That's because we were creating pipes since 1500 BC. If I've been doing something since 1500 BC with my swarthy ass, right? Wouldn't I be amazing at it, right? This is what they found. This is what those industrious people were doing, right? And remember, they said that these industrious people had what? Steel drills. These industrious people had steel drills. You know what I mean? And they talked about pottery. They talked about and they talked about pottery. They talked about right? Remember those Virginia Indians that were reclassified to Negro? Y'all see this pot? What is this dude doing on this pot? This is pottery. This image shows an antique tobacco jar, likely from the 18th century, which means the 1700s, right? With the depiction of a Virginia Indian. With a who? Who? Wait a minute. A Virginia Indian? So that's not a Virginia African? Hey, somebody's been lying. Y'all telling me that's not a Virginia African? That's a Virginia Indian? Wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute. I thought these were Africans. Negroes and shit. The only reason why you think these Virginia Indians are Africans is because the Virginia Indians got reclassified. A lot of y'all try to say that's not true. Lie detector tests determined that was a lie, right? This shit really did happen. Right? This shit really did happen. It's all in your culture. Remember we talked about propaganda, right? And we talked about how these people take something that is righteous, right? And they demonize it, right? So let's look at this. This is Virginia. Once again, this is Virginia. This is they call it slavery in Virginia, a slave plantation in Virginia. Can anybody guess what they would call those people on the bottom? Now, what would they call those people on the bottom? They would call them African slaves, right? Right? But if I went to Virginia and I saw these Virginia Indians already cultivating tobacco, who am I going to enslave? An African to do it, or am I going to enslave one of these Virginia Indians who have already mastered it to the T? Right? And then I get to save money because I don't have to pay for humans to be transported across the ocean. Right? So now we got these Virginia Indians. But the thing about this image, if you pay attention, is you will see at the top, peace, breath, you'll see at the top, all right, what's the word? Have y'all ever heard of the word restoration? Come on now. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, hey, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? The word of the day is restoration, right? Now, in order to be restored, you have to have been something before, right? So this image, if you look at it correctly, right, the people at the top got turned into the people at the bottom. But if you get restoration, that will turn the people at the bottom into what? The people at the top, right? That's restoration. in an image. We're looking at what restoration means in an image. The people at the top became the people at the bottom. Restoration will restore them to the people at the top, right? We get it now. And a lot of people hear the word slavery and they immediately say to themselves, yo, if you're a slave, you got to be an African, right? Put a one in the comments if you know that the majority of the world feels like if you went through slavery in America, you're an African. Put a one in the comments if you know that the majority of the world thinks that if you went through slavery in America, you're an African. Oh, damn. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. All right. All right. If we're on the first paragraph, right? But you see where it says appendix 1? We're up 3 sentences from there. If we were to add up all the Indian slaves taken in the New World, right? They landed on the East Coast, right? So who would these slaves be? I just showed you that these slaves were swarthy, right? I just showed you the Virginia Indians, swarthy Indians. These are reclassified to Negro, right? If we were to add up all the Indian slaves taken in the New World from the time of Columbus to the end of the 19th century, the figure would run somewhere between 2.5 and 5 million slaves, right? Can y'all remember that number, right? 2.5 and 5 million, right? 2.5 and 5 million, right? Now, so it said between 2.5 and 5 million, right? Y'all remember that, right? Between 2.5 and 5 million, right? Now, this is the freedmen numbers, right? Y'all think freedmen are Africans, right? But the freedmen and freedwoman, right, refers to the approximately 4 million formerly enslaved people who gained freedom following the abolition of slavery by the 13th Amendment. So when it came to the Indians, it said the number would add up to somewhere between 2.5 and 5 million. And the freedmen just so happens to be 4 million. Who do we think the freedmen are? Who do we think the freedmen are? I know you did your genealogy. I know you found freedmen on there. And I know when you found freedmen, you were kind of questioning, is this an African? Could this possibly be an African? Right? 2.5 and 5 million, somewhere between that. We get to the freedmen, it just happens to be somewhere between 2.5 and 5 million. Y'all think that's a coincidence? Do y'all think that's a coincidence? Now I'm gonna tell you what they did. Right? I'm gonna tell you what they did. Let me see if I can pull this shit up, man. I'm gonna tell you what they did, man. Telling you, these people are good. Right? They freed you with the 13th Amendment. right? We all know they freed you with the 13th Amendment, right? So if they freed you with the 13th Amendment, now you're free. What do they got to do to follow that up with? They got to disenfranchise you. So they freed you with the 13th Amendment, then they disenfranchised you with the 14th Amendment, right? They freed you with the 13th Amendment, Denisha Peace, and then they disenfranchised you with the 14th Amendment, right? Because the descendants of slaves could now become what? The descendants of slaves were now able to become what? What did the 14th Amendment allow you to do? There we go, Big C. It allowed you to become a citizen. Right? All right. So now it's important to know why they had to disenfranchise you, right? First, what is it called? What did they do to the slaves? What was the name of that word? Emancipation. Hey, look, I'm gonna tell y'all, they lied to y'all with the words, right? Now watch this. All right. Emancipation Proclamation, set free from control, right? To put a son out of paternal authority, declare someone free, give up one's authority over, right? In Roman law, the freeing of a son or wife from the legal authority, right? To make his or her own way in the world from a simulated form, right? Da 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 da. Deliver, transfer, or sell, right? To deliver, transfer, or sell, right? From mancipum, ownership, right? From manus, hand. So could it possibly be that you were delivered from one hand to the other? Could it possibly be that you were delivered from one hand to another? You thought like you were freed from the control and then put into the hands of another, right? Because you went from being a nation to being put in a servitude, freed from that servitude, and then granted citizenship of your oppressor, right? Doesn't that sound like you went from the control of your nation to the control of servitude to the control of the government of today? Does it make sense? You were just like passed off. You're just getting passed around. You know what I'm saying? You're getting passed around, right? Right? You don't want to be passed. You don't want to be a pass around, right? Okay. What was the other word we were just looking up? All right. So enfranchise, right? What is enfranchise? To grant someone the status or privilege of citizenship, admit to membership in a town, right? You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, it comes from franchise, right? Which is what? I hear one of my children. It's national sovereignty, right? So if you got pushed into citizenship, which under this government is wardship, right? That means they took you away from what? Right? They took you away from what? If you got pushed into citizenship, right? If you got pushed into the citizenship thing and you accepted it thinking that it was a good thing, that means you got taken away from this, right? Because what were you before the so-called slavery and all this other shit. What were you before that? Let's go back to that picture, right? Because I'm gonna tell you, citizenship with this government is like purgatory. All right, let's go back to that picture real quick. Citizenship in this government is purgatory, right? So y'all see this picture, right? So you started off as the people at the top. You wound up as the people at the bottom. Citizenship is that little line in between those two things, right? That's what citizenship is. That little line, right? And to add insult to injury, when you look on that line, right? I can't show it with my hand, but what is something prominent that you see on that little line right there? What's a real prominent feature on that line that you see? Nah, on the line, it's an item on there. A anchor. A anchor. Now, we know what anchors mean. So citizenship ends with what word? A ship. Now, we already know that this is Admiralty maritime law. And if you're anchored to something, you're stuck, right? That's binding in a sense, right? So maybe this citizenship is like purgatory, right? Because hell is at the bottom, heaven is at the top, and purgatory is somewhere in between those two things, right? So maybe the reason why right now we don't know what the fuck is going on is because we're stuck in a form of purgatory. Because you can have heaven on earth. If you can have heaven on earth and hell on earth, you can also have purgatory on earth. It's a place where you don't really know what the fuck is going on, right? So that's where we are. But remember, we want restoration, right? What does restoration do? It takes us from the bottom to the top, right? It takes us from that middle ground to the top, restored to who we once were. The reason they don't want you to know who you once were is because then you're going to be like, yo, if I was a king, a queen, if I was a chief, right? If I was all these things, why would I just want $50,000? Why would I want $5 million as a reimbursement for my suffering? So you're telling me you get to sit in my castle and give me some coins and I'm supposed to be happy with that? No, I want my fucking castle back. I want my castle and the money inside because everything you made was off the back of me, right? It's like identity theft. I want everything. I want no goddamn coins. I want everything. But they want you to want reparations. They want to cut you a little check real quick. And then you got to think about it. If they cut you a check right now, right? If they cut you a check right now, where's the money going to go? It's going to go into the infrastructure of this government that controls you. So what is the purpose? Now you want to get restored to the top, right? So then when you get all this other shit, it's going to go into the infrastructure of your what? It's going to go into the infrastructure of your national sovereignty, your nation, right? Right? Stop fucking around. We can't keep playing these games. We're not simple minded. We're not emotionally invested in things to the point where we don't have control. Emotional control is the strongest form of control. Self control is the strongest form of control, right? And this is all information coming from just studying tobacco leaves. We got through all this just talking about tobacco. Why? Because tobacco is culture, right? And they stole our culture because they stole our land, right? Because culture is the act of tilling land and preparing the earth for crops. What crop are we talking about today? Tobacco. It's a crop. It's a cash crop, right? Remember, we said we're gonna break this shit down, right? There we go. There we go. All right, we on the second paragraph, right? Or the third one. All right. Though this country be capable of producing many other good commodities, yet the planters have hitherto employed themselves for the most part in planting of tobacco, as they do in Maryland, whereof, right? Because remember, Maryland, DC, and Virginia in this time is pretty much the same area, right? They had a person named Lord Baltimore who came in and established what today is Baltimore and all this shit like that, right? But in this time, all this shit is the same, right? All this shit is really the same, right? It's the DMV. Even to this day, we connect it, right? We connect it to this day because spiritually we know what's up, right? All right, as they do in Maryland. Whereof here are two sorts, one which is called, right, the sweeter sense, and the other called Oronoic, right, or bright and large, which is much more in quantity, but of lesser price than the former. And the plantations uh, upon York River are esteemed to produce the best of that sort of sweet scented. There is so much of this commodity planted in Virginia and imported from thence into England that the custom and excise paid in England for it yields the king about 50 or threescore thousand pounds and five sterling per year, right? And other English plantations on necessaries of clothing and other utensils, household stuff, cry which they thought they make some shoes, linen, wool, clothes, da 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 da. Some parts of Virginia of the growth and manufacturing of the country, and if they would plant less tobacco, as it is probable, they will ere long find it convenient to them, it being now grown a drug, right? So they said that they planted so much goddamn tobacco that the king was making hella money. The king's pockets were full making money off this, right? They were saying, they said that there was a time when tobacco was better than gold. Having tobacco was better than having gold. Can y'all believe that? Tobacco was better than having gold, right? But they said that they need to stop growing so much because it had became a drug, right? Now remember earlier on I told y'all to remember what? Do y'all remember when we were talking about the tobacco and I said y'all need to remember this? Y'all don't remember. This ain't the same page, but if you look, the Maya used cigars in their religious ceremonies. The word that I wanted y'all to remember from the tobacco prompt was ceremonies, right? It was ceremonial. The use of tobacco, right? It was. If y'all use tobacco in y'all rituals, put a one in the comments. Yeah, I had to pause. I had to take a screenshot. If y'all use tobacco in any of y'all rituals, put a one in the comments. Right? If y'all use tobacco in any of y'all rituals, put a one in the comments. Right? Because I know some of y'all be doing some magic and shit. Don't lie. Right? Remember, right? American Indians are believed to have been cultivating tobacco by about AD 1, Like the first year. The first goddamn year, we was already on it. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing this since day one, right? Everybody put day one in the comments. How long we been doing our thing? Everybody put day one. You know what I'm saying? AD1, that's literally day one, right? We've been doing this shit since day one, folks. Everybody put day one in the comments. Although they used it in some social settings, indigenous people use tobacco primarily in ceremonies, right? Remember, I told you we do things, right? We do things righteously with virtue, right? And they take the things that we do and they turn it into something else. That's why I showed y'all propaganda. Things start off divine. They get their hands on these divine things and turn it into something else, right? We've been doing this shit since day one. And then once they get a hold of it, it becomes a drug. We've been doing this shit since day one. And once they get a hold of it, it becomes a drug. Right? What did I tell y'all about self-control? Self-control is the highest form of control. And if you can't control yourself, something that was once ceremonial becomes a drug because you're not using it for its actual purpose. You're not using it for a righteous, virtuous purpose. Now you're using it for self, right? For greed and all these other crazy things that people use things for, right? Watch this though. Watch this though, because I told y'all. All right, look, as tobacco use increased in Europe, the crop became more profitable than gold, right? So when y'all arguing with them Africans and they're like, we have gold, I want y'all to be like, well, when shit was really hitting the fan, tobacco, which is from America, was more profitable than gold. So there was a gold rush, right? There was a gold rush, but there was a crop rush too, because our crops were worth more than gold. So y'all have gold now today, but the only reason your gold is what it is because they came over here for the shit that was worth more than gold first already. And they came here for the gold too, right? They came here for the gold too, but there was a time when our crops were worth more than gold, right? European traders and colonial farmers. In some colonies, tobacco was considered so valuable that it was used as money. On occasion, New England clergymen were paid wages in tobacco. An industry sprang up around tobacco growing and curing, especially in the South, right? By 1776, the crop was serving as collateral on loans obtained from France to fight the Revolutionary War against Britain. Later, Lewis and Clark carried tobacco to trade with the Indians on their voyages up the Missouri River from 1803 to 1806, right? And just like they said, right? So now we see history repeats itself, right? Because they're trying to act like they didn't know tobacco was destroying people. But in modern time, but we just showed you that even back then they were calling it a drug, right? They were calling it a drug back in the 1600s, right? And now in modern times, tobacco's use has gone beyond what indigenous people who first grew it ever would have imagined. Today's widespread recreational smoking has become one of the leading medical problems throughout the industrialized world. According to the American Cancer Society, 2.1 million people in industrialized countries unalived as a result of smoking, right? This ain't nothing new. They already knew it was destroying people. They already knew what was going on, right? All right. Hey, so shout out to Los. He was talking earlier. He was talking about some interesting things, right? And we're gonna get to that, right? I'm just gonna add on to what he was already saying, but right now we're just gonna talk about these cigars, right? So now we know tobacco was worth more than gold, and I know we got a whole lot of smokers in the building, right? So um the word cigar comes from the Mayan word sicar, right? So the reason why you call a cigar today a cigar is because it's from the Mayan word sicar, right? Okay. You know what I'm saying? The Mayans were known to smoke these cigars, right? But they also used it for what? The same thing, ceremonies, right? So the Mayans were known to smoke cigars as part of the daily, but rather than smoking cigars as part of daily life as it's done today, the Maya use cigars in their religious ceremonies, right? So here we go again talking about righteousness turned into something different, right? Why does if you keep seeing something happening over and over and over again, then it must mean that like, yo, there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern of these people taking our shit and turning it into some crazy shit, right? And then they came here. What did I told y'all? They came here. Remember they talked about the pottery, right? Earlier we talked about the pottery. We showed the Virginia Indian on the pottery smoking. Now we got a Mayan on the pottery smoking, right? This is cultural. This is cultural connections in the Americas, right? We're doing these things culturally, and we're connected culturally through these different ceremonious practices, right? I showed you the pottery right here of the Mayan, right? And then I showed you the pottery of the Virginia Indian. And apparently, the internet is tired of lying because I didn't type shit. I just put this in Google Lens, and the internet was like, this image shows an antique tobacco jar, likely from the 18th century, with a depiction of a Virginia Indian. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for that. I was just trying to find a better break it down and put it in a stogie, right? Ain't that what Lil Wayne said? God damn. Gotcha. This nigga said 2 for 27 cents. Well. You know what I'm saying? Buy a pound, break it down, put it in a stogie. Right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's because these people demonize everything that we do, but there's something embedded in our souls to make us bring it back to righteousness, right? Whatever happens, we got to bring it back. I love you too. Whatever happens, we got to bring it back to righteousness, y'all. Even if we do it the wrong way, to pop up, right? Right? Oh shit. Shout out to 360 the Alchemist, right? Shout out to Los, right? Now this as the Scythian word, all right, wait, cannabis is called cannabism in Hebrew, which is now recognized as the Scythian word that Herodotus wrote as cannabis or cannabis, right? It translates to the fragrant cane, right? The Bible has this fragrant cane. That's cannabis, y'all. What's up, buddy? Go play. I'm almost done. They just woke up right on time, right? The fragrant cane in the Bible, right? It was absorbed through the skin, this ointment, right? They made an ointment, also used to fumigate the holy enclosed space. The ointment absorbed through the skin and the fragrance of the vessels, both absorbed by handling and inhaled as perfume, and the smoke of the incense in the confined space would have been a very effective means of administering the psychoactive properties of the plant. Go play. I'm almost done. I love y'all.
What's happening?
I'm just doing a live real quick, but I'm almost done.
Can we put this here?
Go. He gonna keep trying to find ways to talk to me. All right. All right. He still thinks I'm talking to him. All right. So boom. Remember those ceremonies that the Mayans were doing? With the cigars and the ceremonies. Wait a minute. It might not be what we thought it was. Right? Might not be what we thought it was. Hold on, this ain't a good one. The magician Moses. Oh, hold on, I gotta get a better. There we go. There we go, y'all. The magician Moses scried his message from the Lord in an act of biblical capnomancy. Right? Have y'all ever heard of capnomancy? Stop the cap. Stop the cap. You ever heard of capnomancy? Huh? Put a one in the comments. Put a two if you ain't never heard of capnomancy. Hey, look, I'm gonna take a phrase from Los real quick. Roll it if you got it, right? And as soon as you light it, capnomancy begins. What is capnomancy? Divination by smoke. Uh-oh. So Moses was a capnomancer. Huh? The Mayans were practicing capnomancy. The Virginia Indians, right? The Narragansett, the Pequot. All these people were practicing capnomancy, divination by smoke, right? And their different forms, to smoke, to smell, right? To vaporize, right? So it ain't all about just smoking a J, right? It could be putting it in a pot, right? So what they used to do, they would go into like these spiritual locations, right? In these enclosed spiritual locations, they would put it in a big ass pot, pounds of it, burn it, and sit in there, and the capnomancy begins. They would put it in oils and rub it in their skin, right? All these different things, right? So let's read. The magician Moses scried his message from the Lord in an act of biblical capnomancy. And this was a traditional use of cannabis in magical rituals that has been carried on into modern times. As Ernest Boss Deves, who also wrote a treatise on hashish, right, noted in Petite Encyclopedia Synthetic des Sciences Occultes, right, the science of the occult, right, in reference to capnomancy for divination, the smoke obtained from psychic plants such as verbena, hashish, or Indian hemp are used. Boss, 1904, right? This is in 1904. He's talking about the Indian hemp, right? Niggas is smoking, niggas is hot boxing, right? In cases like this, not only was there a psychoactive effect of the smoke used, but the smoke provided the partially material basis in which the invoked entity or vision might be viewed. The magician burned aromatic substances and anointed his/her body with the perfumed ointments. The whole setup for an epiphany was there. Now, all that was necessary was for the deity to appear. Hey, hey, hey. So burning bushes, Moses getting these messages, all this shit was capnomancy, right? So that's our new word, y'all. We learned it today, right? We all got it figured out. They beating each other up in there, right? That's the word of the day, y'all. Capnomancy. Divination by smoke. So I know like we don't like to be average. You heard me? We don't like to be average folks, right? So the next time you about to smoke, you know what I'm saying? Remember, you practicing capnomancy. No cap, you know what I mean? So instead of no cap, it's cap no. Right? Look, I feel like something about our people is we always get close to what we do, right? No cap, right? But it's not no cap, right? It's cap no. Like we so close but so far away. We right there, you know what I'm saying? We always are in touch with our ancestral behavior. We just do this shit naturally, y'all know it, right? Everything that we do today has been the shit we've been doing. That's why they hate us, because they can't stop us, yo. Like, oh, we put so much in their way and they just keep on doing this shit, man. God dang. You know what I'm saying? All right. So if you trying to talk in code on the phone or at work or wherever you at and you ain't supposed to be smoking, you know what I'm saying? And somebody be like, yo, what you about to do? Man, shit, about to practice some capnomancy. You know what I'm saying? About to get on this capnomancy. You know what I'm saying? We about to get on this capnomancy, right? You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, you heard it here first, nigga. If y'all use it, I want y'all to have Rashaud in the back of your mind, right? When, you know what I'm saying? So he said, look up capno. Let's see. Oh shit! No, that's cap on. I was about to say. Wait a minute. I can't look that shit up. Hold on, let me see if I can look it up. Capno is a prefix from the Greek word smoke that in a medical context means carbon dioxide, CO2. It is most commonly used in the term capnography, which is a non-invasive monitoring of a patient's inhaled carbon dioxide to access ventilation, other psychological functions, right? But it means to smoke. There we go, Felonious. Hey, look, Felonious already got it in use. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Samuel. What's up? You missed the whole goddamn meeting. Oh shit, I like that too. Chief Michael said, "Get real cap knotted." Yeah, let's talk about it, yo. That's a new shit, Slim. Hey, I'm gonna do this same live tomorrow because I liked it. I had a fun time. I'm gonna do this same live tomorrow. I would let you up, Holy Trinity, but I'm about to get off here because my children woke up. But I'm gonna do the same live tomorrow. I might do it again. You know what I'm saying? What is it? Repetition's the father of learning. Niggas. You know what I'm saying? So for all y'all who practice capnomancy, you feel me? When that smoke goes up, you got to keep your eyes on the smoke, right? Because that's where you know what I'm saying, the divination appears, right? And then if you know anything about alchemy, you have the physical property, you have the fire, and the smoke is the spirit. You know what I'm saying? Hey, shit, we on it. Hey, look, y'all. Dan was gonna drop the Great Pyramid, Jan. It doesn't have a cap for no. Oh shit! It doesn't have a cap. So what, was it producing smoke? All right, look, y'all. Hey, I'm gonna do the live again. Holy Trinity. The next time I do it, I'm gonna go through it and then we're gonna break it down. But I gotta go. They need me. They ain't gonna let me cook for too long while they're up. Am I done?
This apologies. So that's how funny.
Halloween been over.
Huh?
Huh? Hey, I hope y'all enjoyed the live, yo. This shit, hey, this was amazing. It's been a while since I been on like this kind of Indian business on a live. Hey, he said I'm ready to try that now. No cap, no mancy. Hey, for real. Hey, look, man, we dropping gems, baby. You know what I'm saying? This live was fire. I appreciate everybody for showing up. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna do it again.